Halloween
Forever.
Megan.
Yes.
What happens when a robot comes?
I don't know, Steve. What happens?
It busts nuts and bolts. Oh, welcome.
Great job.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Halloween is Forever podcast. It's me, Steve.
And I'm Meg.
And we're down Brian. He's taking a little bit of time for some family personal time. So we had to change our schedule a little bit. I know everybody was expecting our robot rampage showdown this week, but we're taking a little change in schedule just for a little bit. We'll get to those ever so glorious robots and their rampagings. And, I know everybody can't wait to talk about 1995 Screamers. So we'll get to that one.
Now they just have more time if they didn't have a chance to watch,
Right. Also, again, we gave them a short window to watch Jim Wynorski's new opus, Murderbot.
Oh, yeah.
And kids, you got to go to fullmoonfeatures.com. It's the only place it's streaming. You got to pay that $6.99, but you get it. You got a whole extra week now.
Yeah, but if you love the show, you're going to,
Yeah.
You're going to do it.
You're going to do it. In the meantime, though, we're going to do a little bit of a mini rampage because we decided to watch the movie M3GAN.
M3GAN.
M3GAN. Regan. So Meg and I are going to talk about that. Meg is a Megan, and I had a roommate who was named a Megan, so we're doing a full Megan roundtable of all the people who knew a Megan.
Yeah, it's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but just in all the Megans. So if you know a Megan, maybe listen to this episode with that Megan.
Right. Yeah. So you can have a good time with that. So we'll get into that. But first, Meg, do you got a little drinky poo?
Oh my God.
You got drinky poos?
Yeah. So my bosses went to Chicago last week and I was watching their cat. So
oh no, not Mallort. Did they bring you Mallort?
As a gift, they brought me a bottle of Mallort, which up to recently, it was actually, I think the tides changed when I was in Seattle. Up to that point, I'm like, Mallort sucks. Mallort is like stomach bile in a bottle, I vomited and then all of that was harvested and then distilled down to make Mallort.
Yes.
Something happened when I took a shot when I was out in Seattle and I was just like, you know what? I actually don't know if I hate this anymore. So I'm actually not upset about it. But so what I did was while I was at work today, I made a grapefruit simple syrup, and I was like, I actually think I could make a cocktail with a Mallort out of this, What I am drinking is Mallort, this grapefruit simple syrup, and soda water, and it's not that bad. If you're into really bitter Amaros or something like that, you fucking get it. You just get it. So it is very bitter. The syrup definitely brought some sweetness. There's some citrus. It's kind of pithy, and it's really, really nice. So yeah, I'm gonna be a spokesperson for Mallort now.
I've never heard of anybody zhuzhing up Mallort into a cocktail. So, hey, I don't know if you're an innovator that way or not. I don't know if people in Chicago have even figured out to do that. But
I just don't know if that's really the culture around it. I'm sure some hipster bar fucking makes some crazy cocktails with it. But, it's a shooting shot, Yeah,
it's always been known as a shooting shot. See, now you still haven't had Plinkovac though, right?
Nope.
Yeah, we got to get you on the Plinkovac train.
I still think there are certain things that need to come into my life as gifts for me to appreciate them for what they are.
Yeah.
If I have to pay money, the value proposition for that is completely out the window. I have no interest.
It's only $10 money though.
Still, I will then, if I don't like it, I will be like, why did I spend $10? I could have, I'll tell you, I could have bought another pack of cigarettes.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah, I get it.
And smoked them all in one session, more than wanting to drink something that was so terrible for only $10.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, I get you.
It's extreme.
I just feel like if you're finding a new love for Mallort and you're able to judge it up, then for sure, Plinkovac. Because Plinkovac's so much smoother, easier to drink. Like, I'm sure Brian has said many times on this show that he just would drink it by the bottle.
Somehow I feel like one shot would make me black out the way you guys describe it.
No, not at all. No. It's pretty, it's, I don't know if there's a term for it, but it's like almost a sip and shooting shot, because you could do a bunch of shots, which is why they were always $1 at every Beaver County bar. I don't know if they're still that way with inflation in that, but you know, you could just do shot upon shot. It's like the natural light of shots.
Heard.
Yeah.
Heard. I had two things that come to mind. That first, there are certain alcohols that are just designed to be completely messed up. And the way you talk about this, I feel like this sounds like an alcohol that would go in like a pudding shot.
Maybe. It'd have to be like something that goes with licorice though. So, because it does have that liquor, it does have that licorice flavor, but it's not as bad because I don't like licorice. So like I hate Jaeger. And
I like Jaeger though too.
Yeah,
you know?
But like, I don't know, I'm weird because I also do like ouzo.
I don't know ouzo.
Ouzo is like a grape, or not grape, Greek. It's a Greek liqueur. And it's just like straight up liquor. It's Greeks not even like,
don't fuck around though. I feel like Greek people, they don't fuck around. My second thought was that as I was saying this, and I'm zhuzhing up this Mallort, is I want to see an Instagram page or a TikTok, whatever, of people who specifically take really, really terrible alcohols and liqueurs and just make really fancy, delicious cocktails out of them. I think it has legs.
Yeah, there's a YouTube account that I follow, How to Drink, and he does cocktails all across the board, but occasionally he does episodes like, and I think he's used Mallort a couple times, so he does cocktails of like the worst ones. And so far, I think he's found like Mallort, and then this Asian wine that's called Cao Ling, or like the two. Yeah, they're like two of the worst.
Have you ever had Sangai?
No.
Sangai. It's like a type of brandy, but it was really interesting. It kind of had this bitterness to it that I tried two. We had two different. They were completely different flavor profiles, but it still had this like sweetness to it, but like it was really unique. And I feel like that would also go into this category of things we're talking about.
Sure.
But yeah, what are you drinking over there?
What I'm drinking, it's not full on Zoom, but I went out of my realm of things because I was buying a bottle of soju again at the Wine and Spirits, and then I saw on the clearance rack that they had a $3.50 bottle of mulled wine.
Oh God!
But it's still in my lane because it's a maple pecan mulled wine. Wow. Yeah.
I feel the headache right now.
And I was worried about that too, but it's only 6.5%. Like, that's why I don't like wine, because usually it gives me a headache. But like certain like sweet wines are usually a little easier for me. And then because it's like a lesser ABV, I feel like it probably won't give me as much of a headache. So I'm giving it a try.
All right.
And as you were saying earlier, like I only paid $3.50 for it. So I'm not going to be super upset if it turns out, bad for me.
Totally. Yeah. Again, that value proposition. How much am I going to, okay. You took a first sip and.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been sipping on it, but yeah, it's like, it's a sweet wine for sure. And it doesn't have like a whole lot of, I don't know, like any acrid tannins on it. So it's not very bitter at all, but it's just kind of tastes like grape juice and pancake syrup in a way. Because like I said, it was maple pecan, but it's not, I don't know. It's not
I don't
great.
know. I feel like what you need right now is like a peanut butter whiskey or something to make some pretty nice peanut butter and jelly pancakes. This really feels up your alley.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know why I'm encouraging it, but
that's it. Almost turns into like a cement mixer without the curdling, but you drop a shot of the screwball into. Or have you ever had Batman drinks?
No, I haven't. I feel like I see it at Jack's. Like they have the one poster, like Jack's on the sass side.
Yeah.
I don't know where that accent came from. That was really bad.
Jack's on the sass side. I forget everything that goes into a Batman shot, but it winds up tasting like root beer.
Oh,
and it's like it's something dropped into a Jack and Coke.
I'm now curious.
Yeah. But again, this is another like Beaver County fucking thing that happens a lot.
Okay,
is like Batman shots.
Spiced rum to a pint glass halfway filled with cola. Yeah. And then fill a glass of butterscotch schnapps, Jägermeister, and Irish cream. So it's definitely like a bomb shot. Oh yeah, it's a bomb shot. Yeah. But yeah, it for whatever reason it comes out tasting like root beer when you like drink it all at once. Why don't you know what I feel like? I feel like I don't have enough of those type of drinks in my life anymore. You know, there's a time where like I remember long time ago, like you ever see like flaming Dr. Peppers? Oh yeah, I used to make them. Like they're so good. Yeah, like they're so good. So, and I found one bar divey enough to light it on fire. McCardles? Because there was a couple places I'd be like, I had to have been freshly 21 because they just wouldn't do it because they're like, legally can't light things on fire inside the bar, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you're a fucking wuss. Go back to your home. Light the shit on fire. Yeah, McCardles used to light them on fire, and I think so did Jekyll and Hyde's. The White Eagle on the South Side did it once, and then I think I knew the bartender well enough at Nico's that did it one time. Yeah. Again, bartender's not there anymore. So see, I never tried to get it at the White Eagle because anytime I was at the White Eagle, I was just getting rocket fuel. So what is rocket fuel? Oh, it was one of those things that was like 20 liquors in once that tasted like fruit punch. Oh God. Yeah, it was get you fucking turned. Man, I can just imagine that we could do an entire show talking about the terrible things that we drank and ruined our bodies with. All the terrible drinks of the South Side and Beaver County. That's what everybody tuned in to listen to. They didn't. Oh man. We'll move on. To say out loud, bringing back pudding shots, Dee's Cafe, pudding shots. My ex-husband ended up in handcuffs shortly after that. And it was one of my worst hangovers of my life. Oof. Yeah, so but that's what pudding shots do. Yeah. So there you go, listeners. If you're ever in Pittsburgh and you need suggestions on where to completely lose your mind at, we got you nailed down. Just shoot us an email, HalloweenIsForeverPod@gmail.com, and say, hey, I need some drinking tips. I need to know where to go. We got you covered. The subject line is called Team Shit Show. Yeah, Team Shit Show. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, Team Shit Show, we got you covered. Also just follow us on the Twitters and the TikToks at Halloween is Forever. You can find us anywhere. Just send us, the DMs are open. You need drink recipes, we got you. But with that in mind, though, let's move on to a little bit of business we're going to take care of now so we don't have to take care of it next week when we do the showdown. We're going to do that old picker wheel because everybody knows every month we do a showdown, and that showdown is predicated upon these 3 topics that are picked by random chance, but it's a picker wheel full of horror topics, and then we let you vote upon them. So I got one. Here's the first one. So excited. Telekinesis Kyle. And that was, obvious Tenacious D reference. But it's a reference to, that means we're going to be looking at like all the telekinesis movies. Scanners comes to mind automatically. I think you could also probably put Firestarter into that.
even though it's pyrokinesis, it's still like she does it with her mind. So
controlling things with your mind, or because I don't even know if we have anything on the wheel that would be just like, you know, referencing X-Men, like where they just have special powers and like, you know, certain people can do different things with their mind. But I would be okay. I mean, that could go in the Meg Rail category. Little.
The only ones that were coming to mind right away, I mean, I think the Meg Rails on that episode would have been Carrie, but we've already done that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, so, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, Carrie is definitely like a Meg Rail. You can't take Carrie. It's too good.
That was just it was a perfect movie to pick for the topic. That one, you know, I'll defend that one.
Sure. The next category, though, is kind of apropos considering that there's already a film from them in this month's Showdown, or in April Showdown, yeah. But the next category is Full Moon Films.
Oh, there we go.
You know, we've been talking a lot about them. We've featured a number of them. You know, we did Head of the Family. We're going to do Murderbot. So, yeah, Full Moon Films. That also includes like all your Puppet Masters.
I mean, with this subscription, I feel like I'm going to have to just like take advantage of it. At least watch a few.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you got so many good ones. You also got stuff like Oblivion, which is more, you know, sci-fi. Check out the Oblivion films. I love those. I'm trying to think what else kind of, I mean, there's so many Jim Wynorski, and I think maybe some David Duchovny. Yeah, I think some of his films make that Full Moon as well. So the Full Moon has a huge library of films. I think maybe only rivaled by Troma with how many just cheap, quick movies they put out and distribute.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the list right now. And I mean, I feel like it's just nothing I've really sunken my teeth into, but not like obviously opposed to. But The Creeps, I feel like The Creeps has come up in conversation. That looks like it's on there.
Yeah. We've probably talked a little bit about that. Probably more Brian than me, because Brian's much more the Full Moon guy, and I'm the Troma guy. So, but yeah, like, you know, Troma distributes way more than they actually make. You know, like I think when people think Troma films, they more often think about, you know, what was directed by Lloyd Kaufman, whereas like.
Will we have to put parameters on that one, or is it pretty much?
Moon? No.
Yeah.
No,
okay. Cool.
No
so just
bumper,
anything.
Yeah. No bumper rails on that one. I don't think.
It seems like a company that has no rails itself.
It doesn't. No. If you want to do Evil Bong 7, you can do Evil Bong 7. If you want to do Evil Bong 8, you can do Evil Bong 8. Yeah. You can do any of those that you want.
That's fucking hilarious.
Our final category to vote upon, though, is called Future Stars, and this is films that featured like an A-list celebrity before they were famous. So a lot of times you see people who, you know, they star in horror films before they get big. I think Mia Goth is probably like a current modern example of that. She's been doing a lot of horror films, and she's kind of getting famous off of these horror films.
Right. I feel like she's like, the way you're describing that too, I feel like she's kind of in that phase, and to see what she'll transition to next would be interesting.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like a better version of somebody who was like in horror. They got their start in horror films, and then they transitioned to something bigger. Because there's so many examples, and that my brain is just not working right at the moment.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, like, even Bruce Campbell, you know, like, obviously he got his start with, you know, Sam Raimi and doing The Evil Dead. And then, you know, they still worked together, but then, like, he went on to do Briscoe County, and then, you know, he shows up in the Spider-Man films. So, but, you know, everybody obviously knows him for the Evil Dead films. So it's kind of like that, you know, just where somebody got their start. You know, they were unrecognizable at the time, but now they're huge. So that is going to be our third category for May.
Beautiful.
So again, that's Full Moon features. It's, what was the first one? My brain just complete. Oh, telekinesis, Kyle. So any kind.
I actually told you that with my mind.
Yeah, thank you. So telekinesis, Kyle. So any kind of movie that has telekinesis, and I suppose we can discuss whether or not we let pyrokinesis in, just because I can't really think of a whole lot of telekinesis movies off the top of my head that aren't scanners and carry. Yeah. So, but we'll talk about that. And then, what we just said, the future stars that grew up in horror films and went on to be bigger. But that'll be your May showdown. So check the social medias. Again, all the Halloween is forevers, but mostly Twitter and Instagram. That's where we do our voting. You vote, then we'll pick our movies, and then we'll fight those movies out. And then somebody will be champ for May after we figure out who champ is for April. But
lucky for us, we don't have to hear on this episode of Brian reminding us that he is the current champ.
Yes, we do get to skip all that shit talk that means nothing because I deserve to win. I should have won.
He's after it.
Yes, I deserve to win. I should have won last month. I think right now we're just in a holding pattern until I win this month. So we're going to get there.
Got it. I like your self-talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's just, look, anytime I lose, I don't think I actually lost. I just think something else happened. And then when I'm waiting to win, I'm just waiting to win.
Yeah. I mean, what you just said actually makes me want to take back my comment because that just sounded very delusional, but I like the confidence. You keep coming back for more. You keep losing, but you don't let it keep you down.
The other side of that is also I don't have any proof to deny this, but like I always think that I win the audience's heart. Like even if I don't win the voting, I know there's plenty. I think the majority of the audience is at home saying, damn, Steve got screwed again. When will Steve ever win? This is bullshit. I agree with Steve. How do I?
You're not like getting messages about this though.
Well, no, I'm not getting messages to the contrary.
You know? Okay. I see how you, again, a great perspective, good self-talk.
My audience is the silent majority and
everyone is on Steve's side.
Yep. They are classy enough to not message you and Brian being like, hey, fuck you. You totally screwed him. Fuck you. My audience is too classy for that. So, they don't send hate mail just because I lost.
They're for sure messaging me saying, great job this month. Great picks.
Oh, no, that's your audience messaging you saying, great job, great picks.
Yeah.
But my audience but my audience doesn't send hate mail. That's what I'm saying.
That's fine.
I just have the silent majority.
Got it. Okay, cool. I hear you, Steve.
Yeah. They just know they don't have to send messages. Like they can just enjoy Ravenous and go, yeah, Ravenous is just a better movie, but we don't have to send messages that are mean to Brian and Meg.
Totally. Yeah. They're for sure sparing me and Brian. Absolutely.
Yep.
And thank you, audience, for sparing us.
Yeah. Yep. They don't have to be rude. And I just know that about them.
I love every ounce of this conversation right now.
Let's move on to the movie we watched. We watched M3GAN. It is
M3GAN. My coworker always says M3GAN to me, like calls me now M3GAN every once in a while, and I find it funny.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they actually put a name to it. That, it justified why this thing was called M3GAN, but we'll get into it. The movie itself was directed by Gerard Johnstone, who I haven't really heard of. I'm not familiar with. He has, you know what?
Not a lot on his Housebound. I don't think I've seen Housebound.
I have actually seen Housebound. It was on a Tubi. It's a pretty good movie, but also now it kind of makes more sense as to why I felt the way I did about this movie.
Okay.
So yeah,
Say more.
yeah. So I don't know. I like M3GAN. It's kind of a fun. Definitely a fun movie. It has a lot of the vibes because other people associated with this are James Wan, who we all know from doing Malignant as like kind of last year's or 2021's big breakout, like crazy movie. So there's a lot of those kind of tonal things in M3GAN, but what the kind of the DNA it shares with Housebound is like Housebound is a comedy of sorts.
Okay.
But also there's like a lot of kind of emotional things in it as well.
Okay.
And it's about like a young troubled teen. So like it's again like troubled kids and like how their parents try to deal with them and everything.
I think that concept, and I'm glad that you found that tie there as well, because I think like when I saw this movie is like it had this like fullness enough where I'm like I felt satisfied that this was like there was a reason and a why all these things happen, and it felt cohesive. But like touching on like such an emotional thing, I think now society's a little bit like reactive to that sort of thing, so it hits more than just the horror, or it gets you like hooked and connected with something, whether or not you've like lost a parent or you knew someone who lost a parent. You had this like instant connection with the story.
Yeah, I guess my issue is like it just feels tonally inappropriate sometimes, which Housebound does too as well.
But I think that was almost purposeful, and we can jump into like exactly what, because I think there's a couple scenes where I totally know what you're saying. But
yeah, because I mean, so just to start the movie off, M3GAN starts with actually a pretty great scene, and I feel like this is something that James Wan definitely pushed to make sure it made the final cut and everything, and like was pushed into the edit in the screenplay, is that it starts with this commercial for a Furby like toy, but it like has like all these weird intrusive properties. It has these horrific teeth that are like, you wouldn't put like small human teeth in a toy like that. That's why Furbies had beaks. As creepy as weird as Furbies were, they wouldn't have like god awful human teeth that come out. But
I find it kind of funny because I didn't initially think Furby, but like the moment you said it, I was like, yeah, that was like an initial connection to like something that is reminiscent. So yeah.
Also, the commercial starts out terribly inappropriate because it starts with the saying like, stop getting pets because pets die. And
yeah.
So, I mean, and obviously, like, if you're watching this, you're immediately thinking of the Cheddar Goblin from Mandy. Just that, in an inappropriate, funny commercial for something that we recognize. This also did remind me of, like, I think it might have been a Whitest Kids You Know sketch, but it's like perpetual puppies, and it's all about like how like, pets don't stay puppies. So like when they grow up, just bring them in and we'll kill the old dog and give you a new puppy.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so you get this inappropriate commercial for this perpetual pet, and it's a Furby ripoff, but also it has like all kinds of intrusive things about it because it has like a camera on it and like a listening device. And then they smash cut to a girl in the backseat of a car playing with her perpetual pet, and like every time you feed it, it makes fart noises, and like it's constantly talking. This movie is filled with little things that I love. I don't like the big overarching things I don't love as much, but there's so many little things I love in this, and one of them is in this scene where the fucking toy does not shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and I think you kind of said it, calling this movie fun, and I think like there are certain things that I didn't echo in that I didn't overall think it was like necessarily like the best movie per se, but like I had fun watching it and like in certain ways. And yeah, just because I think that little guy like burped too, or maybe did it fart. I was just like,
it did everything. It's just constantly making noise. It's burping, it's farting, it's just talking about nothing.
I think I would have loved that. I would have loved torturing my siblings with that thing. It would have been so fun.
Yeah, it's a thing that's like you can definitely. That's the other thing I like about it is like it's a toy. Like it's not too far off to believe that it could be something that would exist. Within like 3 or 5 years if somebody wanted to dedicate themselves to it, just because it's annoying, but it's tied to an iPad. So like you play on the iPad to interact with it. And then, it's just like an annoying piece of shit that like parents would hate.
You know what? In my age, we had gigapets and they were just as annoying, but they could also die very easily and you can just start again.
Gigapets? Jesus, couldn't get the brand name Tamagotchi?
No, I don't think. I probably didn't. Wow. Coming straight for the jugular there.
It's just like, I feel like that's what everybody remembers was Tamagotchi.
Yeah.
But, so you're introduced to this pet and then you're introduced to Katie, who's the little girl playing with it, and she's on a trip with her parents, and they're on like a snowy road. And like this was another thing, a small thing I enjoyed, but just like the banter between the parents of like just kind of their incompetence. Like very often parents are portrayed as like knowing everything, sure, being the ultimate authority. But like in this case, like the parents are just very humanly flawed in that like the dad didn't know he didn't know that the car was 4-wheel drive. They don't know to just stop and pull over. They don't, like they're just kind of dumb. But it sets the tone for the rest of the movie because a lot of the rest of the movie is like based on incompetence of people.
Well, also, like I found, like obviously this is a later scene when Megan's reading Alice in Wonderland to a little girl, and there's like this tie to like her having to just figure things out for herself in a sense, which I think is a little bit like contradictory to the fact that like she then uses Megan to like help figure things out. But I think when you said that, it made a lot of sense because it's even what we experience when she goes to live, when we find out she is with her aunt and whatnot, because that incompetence is just like the whole theme like throughout is that she's trying to figure out not only how to deal with grief, how to deal with like learning and growing as a human.
Right.
So I think there's like some ties there too.
Yeah. There's definitely like a lot of themes of, and maybe incompetence was too harsh of a term for it, but like just like parents are flawed, adults are flawed, and people are going to make mistakes. And like, again, like everything is based on mistakes. The eventually how this scene ends is, because the parents decide to stop in the middle of the road, they get hit by a plow truck, and that's what kills them and sends Katie off to live with her aunt, Gemma, played by Allison Williams, who is, like this grand toy designer. And she is also the designer of the perpetual pet who's farting and pooping and yelling. But, like Gemma makes mistakes, because she doesn't really know how to raise Katie. But then she also makes like a whole bunch of mistakes in building Megan because she doesn't stop to think. And she doesn't.
Like, I feel like it's not even stop to think. I think there's so much pressure behind the situation that like she's rushing to get like figure out a solution or just like come up with something that'll like be a band-aid or like fix the problem that she doesn't know how to deal with. Like, 'cause we're talking about emotions, she has no idea how to deal with a child. So her reaction to that or response to that is to create something she does understand. Even though like we obviously find out there's like such a significant amount of flaws to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There, and she is also like under pressure, which is it's established early. Like she's under pressure by her boss at this funky toy factory. So like she is, when we're first introduced to her, she's trying to build a Megan and it's not working out. Like it's kind of reminiscent to like Robocop too. If people remember that, it's just like they were trying to build a new Robocop, and all the Robocops were like exploding and shooting themselves in the head. It's kind of similar to that scene in that, like, they try to build the M3GAN, and then the M3GAN has like this crazy face and it doesn't respond correctly, and then it just starts sparking and explodes. So
I mean, that's how I respond to problems too, you know.
Right.
I'm building a connection with M3GAN here, you know.
Well, I assume you have to immediately try to take some, you know, ownership and be like, you know, how does M3GAN relate to me? Am I M3GAN?
I am M3GAN.
Yeah.
Soon enough, everyone's M3GAN.
You know, and then Gemma gets the news about Katie, and you get a pretty quick truncated scene of just like them moving in to get it together and everything, and that's where you get into the meat of like Gemma being ill prepared to bring Katie into her home. This is one of the things that I didn't quite like, because you get the early scene of her trying to build a M3GAN, and then it doesn't make sense, or at least it just didn't play correctly to me, like how quickly she gets inspired by Katie, because like Katie isn't like interacting or playing, you know, and like she doesn't have any toys, she doesn't have any friends. So Gemma quickly gets inspired to solve that very thing, but she was already working on solving that.
I think like there must have been like this unsaid thing of like maybe a piece that was missing of like what the purpose of a M3GAN would be. And then so when she saw an opportunity for like this doll, essentially like AI doll, to help at home, it was like a selling point, which is obviously what we find out is like this doll gets sold as like something to relieve some burden off parents, you know, who are just probably everyone's working. But, you know, there's a narrative where kids are, you know, they're left alone a lot and they don't have someone to help make sure they're like becoming responsible people. Whereas this AI can step in and be like, and do that job. So like there, I can see like, you know, a light switch go off when she needed that. She's like, someone else would probably want this as well.
Yeah. It just seemed weird because it seemed like she was already working on it for that purpose. And it seemed more that like the way she was inspired technically, because the scene in which she gets inspired, they're playing with another robot she had already built called Bruce. And it was like a proxy robot, you know, that like was controlled by these. And this is kind of like where it gets into this is where the movie gets its first bit of silliness in you know, kind of plot, because you see the foreshadowing, but it's just like, here's a robot that's controlled by gloves, you know, here's little haptic gloves that will like control this giant, you know.
I also want to know what college she went to be able to have created that thing in college. Right.
I mean, it was a full on, I mean, it's more advanced than anything that Boston Dynamics is doing at the moment, I think. Like maybe, I don't know, but like just the fact that she was able to keep it in her garage as well.
Right. Oh, I get to like take this thing home. Sick.
Yeah. I can have this thing that would be an absolute Defense Department like application, because it would be, it's a soldier that would be controlled. That's another movie I want to see now. I want to see the movie where this thing's controlled by soldiers.
Yeah. Well, I almost like build this tie as like, if that was one of the moments where that was like really the light bulb goes off, is that like maybe, and I could be just adding to the narrative versus like actually pulling what could be happening, but there could be some connection for her where she's like, when I was younger, this thing really helped me get through college, or like, you know, was kind of like mildly a companion. So her having this like emotional like boundary, not the right word, but and ineptness is not the right word either, but like not able to fully feel emotions, like even just having that maternal figure or like instinct, but she's like, oh, this robot helped me, this is now where M3GAN needs to go. It's like this, what if this robot could actually just help someone else?
Right. Which I think you're correct in like that connection, but just for me watching it just felt more like, oh yeah, I forgot I had these parts in this robot that I'm now going to put in this new robot.
Sure.
Which again, if the Bruce robot was some sort of military contract robot, that would make a lot more sense as to why it goes haywire. Because you're not that feels like a real common horror trope of putting defense robot products in a toy that you're not supposed to. I mean, that was the premise of Small Soldiers. They yeah. If anybody remembers that movie,
makes sense.
It's a good one. But yeah, so they finally build M3GAN for real, and they bring M3GAN to life, and like we talked last week, Children of the Corn, and how Kurt Wimmer can't direct kids. This film is pretty heavily built around the two performances of Katie and M3GAN. And M3GAN is played by a real little girl. So this director, Gerard Johnstone, he obviously has a better rapport with kids in getting what he wants out of them.
Sure.
Because the performances aren't terrible. And as far as M3GAN goes, like, she moves in a way that, you know, especially in the early scenes, she moves in a very robotic way. So he's getting a good performance out of an actor, like, you know, made up to be like a robot.
Yeah, I think I read too that this like the whole performance of M3GAN was a combination of the girl who played her like body movements of like the full scenes talking about the dancing, etc., with like a dollar. It was like a puppet of sorts, and then a little bit of CGI with it too. So like kind of like throughout it, there's, I don't know, this disbelief that this thing is real or that it's a real person. But that girl, I'm forgetting her name off the top of my head, who plays M3GAN. Oh, Amy Donald. Like they were saying, how I like read how she like had to be trained on like how to move a little bit more robotically. Right.
But yeah, she does a good job. And then the other thing is the voice of M3GAN is an adult. So they kind of, that's the one cheat they were able to pull off, is we can have M3GAN be voiced by an adult, especially again towards the end. Like there does feel like an evolution of M3GAN throughout the movie. Because like we're saying, in the early stages, she moves very robotically, and she has, you know, kind of just like a normal kind of intonation to her voice. But like by the end of the movie, she's really sassy.
Yeah. Well, I think it was cool because you kind of got hints that they did a good job with that, the voice actor, that she still sounded like commanding in a way of like she was disarming and sweet and like comforting while also being like going into like assertive roles at times. Like it wasn't awkward.
Yeah. Oh, you mean like when Katie's leaving big shits in the toilet and she's not flushing them?
I really want to know how many, I mean, granted, I don't have children, so like how many kids are just not flushing the toilet. But then I also like know people who are like, no, if it's mellow, let it, or like, yeah, if it's yellow, let it mellow. And I'm like, oh, so I don't know, you know, conflicting thoughts.
And look, I get it. And there is a certain subsect of like, I grew up in kind of that, if it's yellow, let it mellow, because I lived like in a trailer with well water. And like, if you use too much water, you can't have water for other things.
Sure.
So like, you know, also like anytime the power goes out, you can't, you got to let the yellow mellow, because otherwise you can't flush again. You got to make your one flush count. So I get that.
I also, you're like, I fucking relate.
Yeah.
I also have to like, was M3GAN just outside the door with the door open, just watching this happen too? Because I think that's also what
she's outside. She's outside. She's listening, and this is why it's not yellow. This is why Katie is dropping giant logs and just leaving them in the bowl. Like I don't know 9-year-olds because I don't have kids, and I don't hang around them. So I don't.
Yeah, why is Brian not here?
Yeah, exactly. We have to ask him, like, do his daughters just like leave big shits in the toilets? Because the first time we're introduced to this is a joke they play out 3 times, and it's fucking wild for this movie because we just got done dealing with like a bunch of weird, like dead parent stuff, and now we're on to Katie leaves big shits. Gemma walks into the bathroom and she's wildly offended by what she finds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody reacts like that to just a little bit of pee-pee in the bowl. And then Megan has to remind Katie twice, and like very firmly. There's a, on the third time, she's very firm about it. She's like, Katie, flush the bowl.
And I'm assuming, I also would like to think that this was all happening one day too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all in one day. She gets trained to stop leaving logs.
I'm going to use this tactic with my dog,
Mm-hmm.
Make him go clean up. I think it's all the same.
Yeah. Well, you just have to build like a little robot dog who reminds him not to poop. That growls at him when he tries to poop where he shouldn't.
That'd be so cute.
It's a trainee dog.
I like him.
But yeah, so aside from all the toilet humor, like you do get like these instances of like Katie and Megan building like a relationship together, and they obviously start bonding. And then it's also like an obvious kind of allegory or an allusion to the way kids build up screen time, and the way kids become like irrationally attached to the things that they shouldn't. Like there's definitely kids, like if you try to take a toy away from them, they throw a temper tantrum.
Right. Well, it's also like that, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. Object permanence, I think, in a sense. It's like if they don't see it for 5 days, they forget about it. But now you're dealing with something that's like building an emotional connection to, like a little differently. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a therapist character in this movie who, like, towards the end of the film does explain what's happening as to why Katie is so attached to Megan.
Right.
And it's obviously because, like, again, all the allusions to like when you just leave your kids to fucking get raised by video games and the internet, they get fucking psycho about the games and the internet because that's what gets the majority of their attention. If you try to take what's the majority of their attention away from them, then they get fucking nuts.
I also think like it's explained too of like, we're talking about attachment as well. And like when there's like a huge loss, obviously like loss of a parent, that there's like that initial like bond that is necessary, especially when they're so young. And I think in this case, that was clearly explained that was part of this, but not to discredit like anything that you're saying as well as being part of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, again, that was also another thing that's brought up by the therapist of just like, because she has this trauma, like she's way more susceptible. Like she needed, Katie needed more care than Gemma was able to provide at the time.
Right.
Because Gemma has all these deadlines at work and everything. So like, yeah, you get a lot of this, again, we're talking about all this family drama, and like you might be sitting at home listening going, but where's the horror? And like that's kind of exactly the point of like and the DNA this movie shares with Housebound is like there's a lot of drama that's like okay, but then you get enough like little fun things that keeps you watching.
Yeah, I think we'll get to like more of like horror elements of it too. But I don't know how your feelings or thoughts on this too, or even if you think about it all, or if it's like a factor of like horror today, of like there's certain elements to like the trauma or like losing your parents that like hit similar like notes for me that like horror can fill, but like it's like it's more emotional of a connection there. Like these things are absolutely like horrific, which whatever, it's not really my point to it, but they have elements of what like can be in a good horror movie if done well. Like if you can hit on an emotional component of something that we can all relate to, I think that can really, really deepen like the horror that you experience. Or, and I'm trying to think of like other places we've seen in other ways, but
I think to go along with that, you're right. And like the best analogy would be Midsommar, because it's very like, and even the opening starts very emotional with the loss of parents, right. And family overall. And so like Danny is left alone in the world, and she has to kind of find her new attachment, which does wind up being the cult. So, but like that's also a very serious movie. And like just kind of my problem with M3GAN is that it tries to have these serious tones in what is essentially a very silly movie.
Oh, totally.
So like
I can definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and it just a lot of times I feel like it didn't go one way or the other enough. We mentioned like Ex Machina because of doing the robot rampage. Like Ex Machina is a very serious movie. There are light moments. Everybody knows the Oscar Isaac dancing, but like it's a very serious movie about like what it means to be human and like what happens if you create life and things like that. It doesn't devolve into the silliness that M3GAN does. So I just feel like this movie didn't pick a lane well enough, because it doesn't really earn the end payoff to where Gemma and Katie reconcile and try to leave M3GAN behind, while M3GAN is doing silly dances and like killing office workers and things like that.
Totally.
So
yeah, I feel like I feel like this film had a lot of elements of like what you would be like, oh, this is just meant for like a large audience, or like try to hit an audience that isn't necessarily fully into horror. So like, but I think what a miss was, even just talking at the end, but is like talking about Gemma and Katie's relationship could have come a little bit more full circle, where there was like a lesson learned. But I mean, for it being that, so
yeah, whereas
I don't really feel like that's the case.
Yeah. And again, it's just like, because this movie devolves into like such silly moments, I just feel like they should have just gone more silly. Just go more full.
Oh, totally.
Just go more full silly. And like, like M3GAN only really kills 4 people and a dog in this movie.
It's true.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, I don't think body count is really, necessary in a horror film, but like when you're just going to have complete silliness of like a crazy dancing robot girl, just let her go. Like, have her like run amok in that scene where like they're trying to do the launch. Like that felt like they were building to something, because they're like, oh, let's get more people in here. Let's get more people in here.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like a mass definite rampage would have ensued.
Yeah.
Do you almost like, I almost had this feeling, because, the dance definitely like became more of a hit on TikTok, that this film was kind of trying to capture a newer horror audience to like pull them in. So I'm almost curious, like what were the conversations that we're having like before leading up to this, of who they were trying to go after, if there was some connection of like, well, we could have some murder, but like, tone it down a little bit. We don't necessarily want to see, we didn't see the dog necessarily die either, which I think just think about just like seeing pets killed and stuff like that. But we know it happened,
right?
Obviously. So I'm just curious, like, how your perspective is related to that.
Yeah. So like they released an unrated cut of this film, right? And I don't know if that's what you watched. It doesn't really matter, because there's not much of a big difference. The one standout big difference is, we can jump forward to the scene. So like Katie was being homeschooled, and this is a scene that kind of comes almost out of nowhere, but like Gemma and Katie are going back and forth about Katie's education, and Katie was being homeschooled. So like Gemma is trying to transfer her to real school, but at the same time they're doing homeschool things, and that's how they wind up at this homeschool adventure park. Or like they don't explain this very well. This is there's a lot of scenes in this movie that they kind of just jump to things and they gloss over stuff. We already mentioned it with like how she gets inspired to make M3GAN, but this is another thing they just kind of gloss over, and they're at this retreat for homeschool kids. And it's being run by other homeschool parents, and you get a very funny interaction between one of the homeschool kids, because he's not fucking well adjusted. And you get this homeschool kid.
Shipper.
Yeah, you get this homeschool kid, Brandon. He's pretty much a teenager at this point, and his mom is just like one of these like chatterbox ladies who thinks she knows best and everything, and she's going off in Gemma's ear, and then she's like, she just goes, "Hey Brandon, buddy, do you want to put your jacket on or something?" And then just he turns around like with a full man's voice, and he's like, "Fuck off, Holly." But like, this is where you,
that is pretty funny.
This is where you get like
kind of making fun of that shit.
Yeah, it's a funny scene, and like this is another one of those little things. It's funny to incorporate like just like this practically adult kid with all these other like little kids who are being homeschooled. Because like that's not the way kids would usually interact if they weren't being homeschooled. If you're like right. You're usually with like-minded and kids of the same kind of development, going to public school. But they send them off, and they're like, "We're going to roast up chestnuts. So everybody go in the woods and roast chestnuts." And they pair Brandon with Katie, and they're off in the woods. And like Brandon is obviously a sociopath because he can't be unsupervised because for no reason he just sticks this chestnut that is like spiny, like in Katie's hand and starts hurting her. Like he's just malicious, but M3GAN hears him, and, M3GAN begins to chase. Well, after, it's after.
I think, it's like she comes up and he's like fucking with her a little bit. And then she she definitely goes into like a prey mode of like trying to like, cause at this point she's learning Katie and I'm trying to understand her and adjusting and growing. And it's like, so Katie is my number one. And I think the dog died before this tour of the dog. Yeah. So, like we already see that she's trying to like go into like a protective mode of her, which it was a weird scene. So like after, this kid is like messing around with M3GAN, she like then proceeds to try to hunt him, and it's like the only time throughout the whole movie that we see her go into a very specific like animalistic like mode. And I was looking up a little bit about it, and I feel like the only reason they did it is because in one of the interview type films that Amy had to send in, she just like did that in their like living room, that run. And I'm like, oh, so this is like the only reason you guys did this, like just because it kind of looks funny, right? Because the prey idea would like make sense if we saw more animalistic characteristics, but it just felt a little out of place, even though they were in the woods. It still felt a little weird to me. Yeah,
it just kind of feels weird. And it's mostly because like M3GAN is constantly learning things, but you never see her learn these. Like you never see her learn them.
That could have been an interesting thing.
Yeah, it could have been a fun thing. Like if we had an earlier scene of her, Katie, playing in the yard, and like they were playing horses or whatever. And like that's, that's the posture M3GAN adopted. But you don't see that. And the other thing is like, we kind of skipped over like the inciting part of like M3GAN learns what death is. And for some reason that triggers her to be more callous in the way that she treats everything that isn't Katie, because then she kills the neighbor's dog who's been harassing them. And then that's why she's also able to like, attack Brandon, because she no longer values life that isn't Katie, I guess. It's not terribly clear, but just to get back to what we were talking about, the differences between the unrated version and this version is when Brandon is on top of M3GAN, you have the scene of she rips his ear off. And it's much more graphic in the unrated version. You see like a full prosthetic ear being pulled out and like pulled and ripped off.
Yeah, I definitely didn't see unrated, but I liked the, again, it kind of felt like a little like silly fun thing though, is like when then she stood up and then just like flicked it. Yeah. I thought that was real fun.
Yeah. She just flicks it away. It doesn't mean anything to her. It has no value. And then she chases him and he trips and he gets fucking absolutely blasted by an SUV, which is, also just kind of funny. But like another one of the fun little things in that is, you cut back to Holly, Brandon's mom, and Gemma, and just like you break into the middle of a conversation and Holly is going on about, and they say kids who have like behavioral problems, they're, that means it's a sign of a higher IQ. And like you can
all the cliche things. Oh
and it's just so easy to like build out everything else around Holly at that moment, because she is just like taking things she's read on the internet about sociopaths and like trying to spin it into a good thing instead of acknowledging that her kid is a fucking psycho and needs to be like,
oh yeah, because it's a full reflection of you, lady.
It's just so funny. And I think that's like one of the stronger points is just like it's so easy to build all that backstory behind just like that one line. So like I think that's pretty strong writing, where like other times, you know, the writing isn't exactly as strong, but it's a fun thing. But yeah, you know, you start getting Megan, she's starting to ramp up for a rampage, you think? You think she's going to rampage? Because shortly after she kills Brandon, then, you know, the neighbor comes back looking for the dog that has already been killed. And like, she's just been a general nuisance and harasser throughout the movie. But also like Gemma is like kind of just rude to her for no reason at times as well.
Yeah, their relationship, like maybe it's like a lack of character development on that front. I mean, I feel like you get a sense of Gemma being like very disconnected of a human, and like she seems pretty put together, but like she's solving the wrong problems, like touching on the relationship with that neighbor. Like they kept, granted, it's like a weird situation. It's like, oh your dog keeps coming over here, but it's your fence, so fix it. And it's like, but some people are blaming the wrong people throughout the whole thing versus being like, if I have my dog outside regularly, I should probably make sure this dog stays contained. Like this is just, you know, and then versus Gemma taking responsibility of like, okay, I get that this person's not going to do anything, but this person's dog now hurt like this child that I'm guardian of. So I should have just fucking fixed the fence as well. So it's like a weird lack of like understanding of what people's motivations are for this. So I think it gives you like a lack of care. And this movie does an interesting way of like, you're like, I literally don't really care about a lot of people throughout it, besides maybe Katie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even Katie's a shitbird at times.
Oh yeah. Katie, like she gets really shitty, especially, you know, closer to the end. But yeah, like you don't care too much for the neighbor. But it's also just weird how they don't make it 100% the neighbor's fault, because again, Gemma could have just fixed the fence and then, you know, like it's all the neighbor's fault, you know?
Right.
But yeah, because she didn't fix the fence, the dog gets killed, and now the neighbor is harassing them about that. And Katie begins to recognize her as a threat. And so she kills her too. And it's, I don't know. It's not, I feel like it wasn't warranted, because like there wasn't the same kind of threat from the neighbor. Yeah,
it wasn't physical, like, which is what we were used to up to, like, at least with a couple of those deaths. It wasn't physical.
Because the dog had attacked Megan and had attacked Katie. Brandon had attacked.
Just reading her emotions the whole time. And it's like, if they then somehow line up. So it's less even to do with like what is actually happening. So I don't think she understands what is a threat and what isn't a threat. It's just more about Katie's emotional state and how someone makes her feel. Which can be wildly varying. At the same time, if she's seeing like similar patterns, like, no, now this person's a threat because she's like nervous or anxious.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I guess it just could have been communicated more clearly, because like you're saying, so like Brandon was a threat and the dog were a threat. So like if they could find a way to show that the neighbor made Katie feel the same way those other two legitimate threats made her feel.
Right.
So if it was just a little more clear, then it would have made more sense and would have felt more earned when she kills the neighbor. But then from there, like she actually
Gemma is the secondary, which I don't necessarily know if that's an actual tie as far as what threats go, but like Gemma is attached to Megan as like a secondary, so like the neighbor seemed more of a threat to like Gemma. I'm curious if maybe that was like part of it.
Sure. I mean, and yeah, that could have been it too, because, you know, like you see, as you've already been like alerted to the fact that like Megan's been programmed wrong, because she actually wasn't set up with Meg rails. She has no Meg rails.
Lessons, y'all. If you're dealing with a Megan, understand the Meg rails. We need to be contained a little bit. Otherwise, you just don't even know what to expect. Anything can happen. Anything goes.
Yeah. You got to set up the Meg rails. And they didn't set up the Meg rails with Megan. And then she is like all over the place. She's listening to conversations she shouldn't. She's like starting the back talk. She's starting to stay awake when she shouldn't, which how does she charge? That was like, I
think it was that seat.
She always seemed to just get up anytime she wanted. But
it's true. It was almost like wireless charging. That's what it reminded me of. Because she would sit down on that one spot and like light up.
Yeah. So I guess it was just like a charging bench seat, which in their like they said it was going to cost $10,000 for that thing. I can only imagine that bench seat was like an extra charge. Like, you gotta pay for the charging station of your Tesla, so you gotta pay for your charging.
I was gonna say it's less than a Tesla, you know.
Yeah, well, it depends on the model. But
I feel like if I started joking about that, it would somehow end up coming back to be making fun of me. But anywho, guys, I'm the top tier model of Tesla.
you wanted to say you're the top tier Megan.
I am the top tier Megan. The Megan that we experienced in the movie is the intro model.
Yeah,
the test model, if you will.
Yeah, she's a lesser test model. Again, she doesn't have her programming correct. So like you don't need, inputs from outside world to make your own decisions. She has to evolve to do that.
What I was going to say, like, you keep saying that too about it. Like, she wasn't programmed correctly, but I feel like that what we understood about the technology was that it like grows and evolves itself. And that's what makes it so intelligent. It just happened to like go too far.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes too far, but it's just like because it's a creation of people, you can set up those things early on, and that's was the one problem they were running into is like the issue and concept of death came up, and they just didn't have those blockers put into place. That should have been put into place before anything to say, when you hear death, don't think about it. Don't look it up on the internet, which is what she does. Like, she hears death and she's like,
that's what I say to myself.
Don't think about it.
Death. No, unless it's the band. Death.
Right. Yeah. If it's the band Death,
in which case that's fine.
If they're opening up for Venom, think about that.
Yeah. Think about that instead. That actually would have been a really funny parameter. Like, when you think about Death and Venom together, she would have turned into an instant god.
Yeah. Think about, who are they on tour with? Are they with Merciful Fate this summer? Are they playing with King Diamond?
Oh man, but then that would have totally backfired though now, because the lead singer fucking dead. So like it would have just been very cyclical. Like So back to the drawing board.
No good. But yeah, so they didn't set up those rails. They didn't have her, ignore the death prompt. So then she does her own research, and that's the other problem is like she starts researching her own things and then developing responses to that research. But
she did her own research.
She did her own research.
This is what happens when Trumpers say do your own research is Megan kills people.
Yeah, you get bad robots.
You get bad robots. So don't do your own research. Listen to science.
Listen to somebody else. And that's the other funny thing that they kind of try to set up is like, Megan is full of science, and then like she's like giving facts about condensation, but then like where is she? She's getting all this information, but like they never say where she's getting it from. So it just seems like she's scraping the internet like an AI model.
Yeah, it's the Googles. It's the Googles.
Yeah,
for sure.
So there's
actually it was Bing. What was the Bing Megan model? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. Is like. I thought it would have been funny, but maybe they couldn't do it in 2023 year of our Lord, but it would have been funny if at some point the robot got racist, because that's what's happened with a lot of these AI models is every time they're allowed to just scrape the internet, they also wind up scraping the bad parts of the internet, and they start saying crazy things about Hitler and racism. And like Microsoft has had to shut down, I think, at least 2 AI models. They had one on Twitter.
God.
They had one on Twitter, and I think it only lasted like 24, 32 hours before it went full racist and was saying crazy shit.
Insane. Oh my gosh. That's also kind of fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And also, oh my God.
Which would have been
so racist.
It would have been hilarious if at some point M3GAN went racist.
That's actually going to be the sequel.
I hope so. I hope they go much crazier in the sequel. There was just another quick example though. There was a thing on Twitch that was AI generated Seinfeld. I don't know if you saw this.
Okay.
It was just like an AI generated the Seinfeld apartment and the 4 characters, and they just walked around like spouting their own prompts. And I think it lasted like almost a week, maybe more. And then it said something transphobic, and they're like, "We gotta shut it down. Gotta shut it down."
God. Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Everything's susceptible. Jeez.
Yeah, it's just susceptible because it's taking inputs from people. You know, that's the problem. Is like, you know, and that's what, you know, essentially what the entire thing about this movie is like it's susceptible because it's just taking in inputs from people, and Katie doesn't understand that. It doesn't understand, and Katie doesn't understand that, and Gemma doesn't understand that she needs to interact as a person. So like Katie isn't taking the wrong things away. And like, that's how it's like a sci-fi model, because like that's already happening. It's already happening. Kids are on the internet learning the wrong fucking thing. And their parents don't know it. Their parents don't know how to stop them from learning the fucking crazy shit that's out there. So, yeah. The kind of the big ending to this film, though, we've talked about it a little bit, is that despite the problems with Katie, Gemma is hiding these problems from her parent company, Funky, and Funky is going to have this big launch party because they need to get out ahead of it, and they want to show off M3GAN, and they want to show her to the world and debut this $10,000 robot toy that's going to like diagnose autism and, you know, take a time away from the parents and help everything out around the house, and, you know, teach the kids, and like basically you don't have to be a parent anymore, which is like the dream for most, you know, parents who were unprepared, I think. Like, like I think there's a lot of lazy, shitty parents out there who would just be perfectly fine.
Like leading up to this point, we didn't fully touch on it too, was that there were those like test like scenes where they're like, let's put M3GAN and Katie in the same room so you can actually see what they're doing together, and like go and be like so shocked and surprised, which is what initially sold that this like could be something that let's pitch to the investors, let's like launch this as a thing, yada yada yada. And I felt like there was such like it showcased how unemotional people are around like even just the sensitivity and the emotionalness of like children, like even Gemma, Gemma just was constantly like, oh, maybe you should stay home, but we have this really big presentation, right? My job's on the line. And so there was just like that instant, like, how much do people care, or even just showing how little prepared Gemma was for this situation, and kind of showing her emotional capacity, unless it has something to do with this AI technology. Because the big moments we see connecting are like related to M3GAN, or even when Bruce was around.
And you know what? I'll give kind of props to that test scene for the investors, because like they never like say it explicitly, but like Katie is obviously performing a script, and like you could read this scene incorrectly and think the actress is doing bad acting, but she's doing bad acting on purpose, because this is something that Gemma has pushed her into, like this whole the whole story about her parents dying and everything, and how she feels alone. I'm pretty sure this was all a setup to pull the heartstrings of the investors.
Absolutely.
You know, so like Gemma had her kind of relive and say these things about her dead parents and like play, you know, like fake cry and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then like because you get the follow-up scene afterwards where like Katie is basically fine. She's just playing thumb war with M3GAN and eating hot dogs. And then like Gemma is kind of trying to apologize for putting her through that. And like, and I think she's apologizing for making her relive that.
Yeah. Well, even like later on when they're at the launch and there's the video of Katie just kind of like, yeah, M3GAN helped me do blah, blah, blah. Like, like even you pointing out what you just did, I was like, there feels like so much disconnected, because if you look at that scene with M3GAN and Katie, like it felt really awkward when Katie's just like, blah, blah, blah about my parents. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
We didn't. Yeah. I felt very like, just like, okay, now is this just happening? Got it.
Yeah. It could feel like bad acting, but no, it's purposely bad acting because it's the actor playing a bad actor in that scene. So like, again, this director, has, you know, like he does a better job with kids than Kurt Wimmer does. So there's that.
Bars low, bud. Bars low.
Bars low, but he still got it. Got it up over. But all right. So we fast forward to the launch scene, and like this is where Katie, or not Katie, this is where M3GAN starts to lose it. Gemma and Katie have left because, you know what? Yeah, this is another fun thing. Is like, again, before the launch, Katie is in a room with the therapist, and she's just losing her shit in the background. Like Gemma is like Gemma is,
I did like that a lot.
Yeah, it's just so funny because just this happening in the background, because Gemma is trying to talk to her like coworkers who are kind of like her lackeys, and like they're trying to decide whether or not they launch M3GAN, because Gemma knows M3GAN has basically killed 2 people. She hasn't said it out loud, but
yeah,
like
videos have been lost. Like something's off with M3GAN, and also she like before that the scene like when M3GAN just creeps into her like office lab garage thing. I was just like, oh god, yeah, M3GAN is for sure unhinged now.
Yeah, she's being a creep, and like. So you get this scene, but like in the background, Katie is having a full-on meltdown because she can't be with M3GAN at the time. She's like throwing chairs against the glass. It's just a full, complete blowout. And it's just hilarious. It's just hilarious because it's downplayed as something happening in the background. Right. And this is where like you get a quick reconciliation between Gemma and Katie, though. And this scene feels like the least earned of all. Because they just so quickly, like Gemma learns, she needs to, you know, like be an actual parent now. She can't just pass things off to technology. And like Katie accepts it. It's
clearly backfiring.
Right. And then Katie also just accepts it too easily as well. You know, she's just like, oh, okay, yeah, you can be my mommy now.
It's like, yeah, but kind of like, because I think that like right after that is the car scene when she's like kicking the car, which I immediately got triggered to like the first scene of the parent saying. So I was like, okay, here we go. Now we have another car accident, yada, yada, yada. But like, well,
no, that scene was directly before she's freaking out with the therapist because they're driving M3GAN back to Funky to diagnose her problems. Yeah. So like, yeah, she's been having freakouts all the way up to this point of like them having a reconciliation. And it's just like, it doesn't feel, I don't know. The swings didn't feel right. And it just, it didn't feel earned. Like, cause Gemma hadn't really done anything to prove herself as more valuable to Katie than M3GAN.
Sure.
You know, all she was able to do is just like say, there's something wrong with M3GAN. And Katie wasn't accepting that anyway. So yeah, they're just, I don't know. It's okay. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't my favorite part. This is one of those things where it's one of those things where like, if this movie was sillier, it wouldn't bother as much, you know, and it wouldn't have put so much emotional weight before this. Because like that's the thing is like it loads up with so much emotional weight beforehand with like dead parents and like attachment issues and all that, and it to just like this quick one scene of like, okay,
Yeah.
take my hand. We're going to go home. You know, so.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, they leave. They leave the launch. You know, Gemma essentially gives up her job because she's going to get fired for this. But she takes Kitty home. And then, excuse me. And then that's when you start getting the hint that M3GAN is far more autonomous than she's been up to this point, because she starts spoofing a call. She pretends to be one of the coworkers, and then she's like hooked into the mainframe, and like she comes alive to like she blows up the two coworkers. Like
yeah. I like this whole scene. It's just one of those things where I like, the only thing I could do to like have it be like I'm on board is because this is where I think like there was just like the fun action horror elements of it, where I enjoyed what happened, though some of it just felt like it was just for pure entertainment. Was the word I'm looking for.
Well, yeah, no, it's like at this point that the movie goes like full on Malignant is the way, like, it's like these following scenes, you can feel like this is where, you know, Gabriel gets revealed in the Malignant film. This feels like Malignant light because it's a PG-13 movie. And like, they really didn't film anything that would have made this an R movie, because like we were talking about earlier, like this whole big launch party is going on, and Gemma's boss Daniel has been like hyping this up. He wants like more people inside. He wants like, you know, he doesn't want kids on stage with the toy because he doesn't want them playing with it, but you know, they want kids. They want kids there. It's like, this was set up to be like a huge recipe for disaster, but it doesn't pay off that way. So it's like Malignant light. It pays off with like, you know, the two lab techs, they get blown up, and then Daniel gets chased down in the infamous scene everybody knows of, like the little girl does the dance, and then she grabs like the paper cutter arm, which I don't know how many people still use a paper cutter in the office. I don't. I don't.
I used it at a restaurant.
Okay.
For cutting menus.
Okay.
You know?
All right. I didn't know.
But it's not the same type of paper cutter. Like that's like a paper cutter was like a early 1990s, like or earlier. Like you're gonna chop off someone's head with this thing.
Yeah. I mean, those things are definitely earlier. Like we remember them from school. But the thing is, those things have been in schools since like the 50s, probably. It's just they never took them out in the 90s. We were left with these death machines that could take our fingers, because those things had no safety guide on them or anything. You could have put your finger in and taken your finger off. But yeah, M3GAN kills this guy, you know, with this thing, with this blade, and then
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Did you see the M3GAN April Fool's video?
I didn't. No.
They were talking about the sequel, and they're jokingly calling it M3GAN in Paris.
Oh God!
And so basically, when they pulled off the paper cutter thing, it was a baguette, and then you see like it was so bad, and it's like silly and goofy, but. Yeah, and then the boss gets stabbed with a baguette in essence.
And the baguette comes through his chest. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough, yeah.
Solid.
That's funny, though. Did they put, like, a little beret and mustache on M3GAN, or...?
I'm trying to remember. I definitely saw an Eiffel Tower. I mean, this is,
Boo. But if it doesn't have the beret and mustache, I'm out again. I was in, then I was out. But yeah, she kills Daniel, and then you get this really intense... kind of like it would be intense in another film. It's not intense in this film, but because it's silly, because it's a little girl robot, but she's having this kind of super villain monologue with the boss's assistant of like how you're going to kill yourself and how it's going to be your fault that you killed the boss as well.
Yeah.
And she's like, you were stealing secrets and you didn't know how to deal with it. Which
I know this plot.
Yeah.
Which when he was.
Which that felt like, that's where it feels like super silly, because now she's plotting. She's not just like disregarding life. She's now plotting how to end life, which is that's a very, I feel like that's such a human thing of being that sociopathic to lie about how you're going to end life. You know, like that I feel like that was almost, that's
what
too
we all
complex.
fear is going to happen with like AI though, you know, that's like that's the insane narrative about it. Yeah. Is that there wouldn't be a control factor with it. Yeah. I
don't know. It's just like that amount of deviousness. It can only be imagined by humans, I feel like. So that's why that's why it feels like it could be scary, but also it feels too silly to me, or just like too silly to take seriously. Because you went too far. You know, the Terminator makes sense because it was told to kill. Okay, it's not trying to make a plan on how to kill. It's just trying to kill.
Right.
But yeah, so like she makes this whole supervillain speech and then slits the guy's throat and then rides the elevator down with him. And like you get a funny scene of, you know, like the kids turning around. They're coaching the kids at this live stream event. And they're like, all right, big reactions when we see M3GAN. And then they see an elevator of dead bodies. But like, if it was an elevator with M3GAN and dead bodies, and then she went on a rampage, that's what I was missing. That's all I was missing.
Sure. Well, to touch on a couple things that I like kind of read about leading up to it, you know, I already mentioned the Alice in Wonderland like touch. We talked about Furbys, but like that scene was, it just feels like there were a lot of like nods to other things that were very reminiscent. So I don't know if throughout this movie to sell it to people like our age, maybe a little bit older, there were just things that we remember seeing elsewhere. Like that scene was being described as being similar to the scene in Die Hard when after Bruce Willis like sends the elevator down and it's like revealed. And then the other one was when they're at the camp and M3GAN's sitting in with all the toys. It was like reminiscent of E.T. being in the closet as like one of the stuffed animals. So it's like, the moment I saw it, I was like, oh, this is kind of, I think sometimes like tricks to get people to like be like trigger a memory, but it allows us to feel a little bit more engaged and entertained because we've seen it before. But now knowing, I'm just like,
yeah, I think it's also partly because of like the age we are now. We're the age we are is the kind of around the same age, I believe, of like Gerard Johnstone and James Wan. You know, I think James Wan is maybe, you know, like maybe a couple years older than us. You know, like I think he's in his, you know, early
46.
Yeah. So like he's like about 10 years older than us. And then, you know, I think Gerard Johnstone might actually be younger. Not younger than us, but like he's younger than James Wan. So it's just the fact that like we're so generationally close to directors now, you know, directors and writers, that it's just like when they incorporate something in, it's because it's also a lived experience for them. Like when we watch older movies, we're experiencing what their kind of childhoods and early 20s were and the, like the things that they remember and experienced. And it's like foreign to us because it was new to them at the time. But, you know, and then they reached adulthood and made a movie about the things from their early adulthood or early childhood. So I think it's just at the point now, like, like the Furby reference we get for sure. But that's probably because, you know, Jared and James, they also grew up with Furbys or had siblings with Furbys. So
I like to think that both of them had them.
Oh, yeah, for sure. James Wan for sure took the fur off his Furby, though, and just had that weird exoskeleton.
I love how I feel like much Furbies specifically are coming back into my life. Like I do follow this one account where someone takes like the face, the eyes and like mouth combo and like sews it onto these really, really weird creatures. Like one has this really long neck. I think it's called Long Furby. And they put like horns, like deer antlers on it. And it looks so terrifying and awesome. I appreciate it. It did make me look on eBay at not super recently. It was like last year sometime for Furbys. And I didn't know there was an autumn one that comes with a witch's hat.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I like your oh, wow there because you were like, when is she going to stop talking about
No, it's not when you're gonna stop talking about Furbies. It's just like I don't know. I've really seen like a whole lot of other modded Furbies. And I've seen the account you're talking about too. Yeah. Like it's so weird. Like, but like just to be like, oh wow, they had an autumn Furby. Like you're trying to regress to the point of like you're buying a real Furby instead of getting like the weird modded ones that are like.
I'll just be a weird 35-year-old who just started collecting Furbies.
Yeah, on the legit. You're not like you're like collecting Beanie Babies on the legit. You're not collecting the ones that look like the dog from The Thing.
Right. Maybe it would be both. Like I would do both.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm sure like if you go on eBay, there's like a whole or Etsy even. Etsy's got to have a weird aftermarket for Furbies of of custom Furby memorabilia.
Oh man, I just didn't read. I don't think until I did that search that time that like how much variety there was with Furbies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anywho, we can stop talking about Furbies now. I think we hit our point.
I mean, hey, people remember the 90s. But yeah.
You guys can just know me as the Furby girl now,
You can't transition. You can't say that you're not a horse girl anymore and that you want to be a Furby girl. You can't do it. I'm sorry.
Megrel up.
Yeah,
Heard.
Megrel up. Not allowed to make that transition. The audience knows you as a horse girl.
Stay in your lane.
You're gonna have to put in like 3 years work at least and then start showing off your Furby collection on TikTok before you can start calling yourself a Furby girl. You can't just announce it now without having a Furby. You don't have a Furby.
It's true. I don't have a Furby. You know what, Steve? I feel real called out right now. And I know you're right.
Yeah.
I know you're right.
I can give you a roadmap to become a Furby girl, but you can't just say I'm a Furby girl without having a Furby.
My audience also being silent on this matter believes that I am also a Furby girl. All right, I'm done.
Okay.
I am done. Officially done.
Okay. So, well, we can get almost done with this film as well, because after M3GAN doesn't massacre an entire live stream event on Twitch, she heads back home to Gemma and Katie, who are obviously trying to get over M3GAN, and she attacks Gemma. Like M3GAN has decided she's the primary caregiver, and she's not going to be taken away from Katie. I believe she says that she's going to jam a pen in Gemma's head so hard and so specifically, she's going to put her into a sort of coma or
she's a doctor now.
Yeah. Like
the AI made her a doctor.
Yeah. She essentially says she's going to give her a lobotomy and then
to specify, the doctor that I'm talking about is the doctor from the 30s.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. She definitely.
It ends at lobotomy.
See, again, this is why M3GAN should have also been racist. If she can scrape lobotomy techniques, she can also scrape racist things. So.
Yeah. Again, the sequel for sure.
Yeah. Racist M3GAN.
She breaks Trump out of jail.
But yeah, so she's going to lobotomize Gemma and then, run a family by, the passive income from Gemma and then raise Katie as her own, I guess. Katie discovers and overhears it finally. She realizes how much trouble she's in. And this is where she gets the Bruce gloves out, the foreshadowing payoff. Yeah. And this is also like full on silliness. And I love this part. Like it's full on silliness and I love it because like you set it up and now you pay it off of, here comes this giant robot and it feels kind of like Ed 209 in a way taking on Robocop, except for Ed 209 wins this one and just fucking picks up M3GAN and rips her in half. Like, it like discard, like the way she just throws her against the wall. It's just like, it's very similar to discarding the ear. Like it's just, she just broke her toy. Yeah. Like she she broke her toy. She, ripped up her Barbie and broke it in half.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you played a lot with action figures growing up. But this was
it was pretty exclusively horse toys.
Okay. Well, this was very
and Cabbage Patch.
If Brian was here, he would agree with me. But this was very common for anybody who had the 3¼ inch GI Joe figures. They had they just had a rubber band that connected their legs to their torso.
Really?
Yeah, and that rubber band would snap all the time, and you were just left with 2 legs and a torso.
Wow.
Yeah. So
high quality.
Yeah. So that for sure brought back memories of just like accidentally snapping your GI Joe, and now they're like just the torso with arms.
Yeah. And then the M3GAN comes back though. Pretty solid.
Yeah.
Pretty creepy.
Yeah. Pretty solid. Pretty creepy, because she's also like, this is the thing that's good about all robot rampage films. Even if the rampage isn't completely achieved, you have to have the robot taken apart down to a point of like, you see the exoskeleton. It's not completely dead. It's crawling around on just its hands. You see it in Terminator. You see it in Bloody Christmas. And you see it in this film. You have M3GAN, who's like, her hair is all ripped out. Like, she has the Hulk Hogan horseshoe hair.
Great comparison.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey.
Would have also then tied in if she turned a little racist,
Right. Right. Exactly. Again, if she ended the film as Hulk Hogan, it would have made sense.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah. Which is also appropriate. We're recording WrestleMania weekend. So
yeah. I totally forgot. I think it's also a post about it. Anywho.
But yeah, Gemma saves the day and smashes M3GAN's head in with her other robot's head. And, the day is saved, or so you believe, because in actuality, M3GAN has paired with their Alexa, which is Elise in this film. But yeah, M3GAN lives on within the Alexa, which is it's something that's like already been hinted to and shown before. It's pretty funny in the scene earlier in the film where M3GAN just shows up in Gemma's workshop.
Yeah.
And it's her and the Alexa, and they both kind of like look at each other.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right.
So it's already been set up, and it's already there.
She's like able to connect with, and we get that backed up when she's at the office and is able to like tap into everything and control things. So
yeah. Yep. And also, like, anytime M3GAN gets mad in the house, like the house's lights flicker because she's controlling them. So it's like it's a thing that's definitely earned and a good setup for the sequel. For sure. It just becomes a matter of like, how does M3GAN get out of the Alexa, and what body does she go into next? So
yeah, I'll be curious, because like I feel we don't really establish how it can get connected to a person, but the disconnection, is it literally like, oh, you tried to kill me, so now this is done. I'm done with you. I'm gonna go do my own thing now. Don't really know that, so that'll be curious. Like, I will for sure watch the sequel.
Oh yeah.
But my expectations will be pretty minimal, as like this is going to be an entertaining film. But I want more Rampage next time.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's got to be more Rampage.
She's definitely going to have clones. I think she's going to clone herself. I have a feeling that'd be interesting.
Sure. Maybe she takes over like a random factory.
Yeah.
And like starts manufacturing her own stuff.
For sure. So there's another little tie back to things we're all familiar with.
Yeah. I was kind of initially not interested in this movie because one, there's like the obvious Chucky stuff, of like, oh, it's like a single parent household and here's a robot that killed. And like, even though Chucky wasn't a robot in the first kind of run of Child's Play series. It was the soul of a serial killer. Right. But then the remake was exactly that. The remake was an AI that went rogue. So like,
for sure.
I don't know. I was just like, that's why I wasn't interested. But like,
I just feel like me like not watching it initially until just like literally a couple days ago when I texted you about it. I just heard so many bad reviews, and I actually like it just was like I heard negative things, but at the same time, I don't think I would echo that. I mean, we've obviously talked about the things that are probably misses for the movie, but we're dissecting it. If it's like someone's generally just looking for entertainment, it's a fine fucking movie.
Yeah, it's fine, and also like I think it's a pretty good like early horror film for anybody who's younger.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, so like it's a good introduction. Like if you know, I know like a lot of the problems with like people who are younger, they're not interested in watching older films because of the way they're formatted and the way they're filmed, and like, you know, how some of the effects can be hokey. And I get that. So like, yeah, you know, if you want an early horror film for like somebody who's in their teens, this is fine.
So what we're saying as non-parents,
yes,
show this, like watch this with your family, you know, make some popcorn, cozy up on the couch. You know what? Have some family time and watch M3GAN.
Yeah, as non-parents, but like people who would substitute as like bad uncles and aunts who would show like horror films to kids. I
would for sure watch this with my niece, for sure. I don't know if I've shared this. This is definitely a side quest, but I like my niece is now officially into the Misfits, which is sick.
Nice.
She skateboards, she plays, like, she's fucking so badass. She wants to watch horror movies.
Oh yeah, she's ready for this film. If she can listen to Danzig sing about skulls and fucking Michael Graves sing about, you know, because it's all references to horror films anyway, so you might as well just show her the films that they're talking about.
Totally. And I for sure just like want to, besides showing her, like watching horror with her, I want to take her to her first like metal show. And but again, talking about intro bands, I'm like, man, she's into Misfits, and I could probably take her to some punk shows, but like I would want it like doomy music where it's like not as screamy, like there's not as much screaming involved. But yeah,
you can take her to a
quest back.
You can take her to a ghost show. It's not metal, but it's got the visuals.
You make me watch Ghost live. Like I've heard it's a great live show, but I have no interest in Ghost. Here's
the thing,
Mastodon. That would be a sick one.
Yeah, see, well, I mean, sometimes Ghost plays with other things. Like one of the earliest shows Ghost played that I didn't actually see them at because I was late to the show, but Ghost opened for Mastodon and Opeth.
That makes sense.
So yeah, so like
makes a lot of sense.
You can take her to a show like that, but like now that they're headlining act, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who I knew. I knew someone who went, and they were like, the whole stage presence is like very exciting and awesome and fun, and so like I'll give them that. But yeah, from when was it when they first really started popping off? It was like 2015, 2014, somewhere in there.
And about that, yeah.
Yeah, like that great music, but I just fell off. I also have a weird. I don't always feel like I subscribe when I hear people doing really, really shitty things, which is weird to admit out loud. But like just knowing how he's like fucked over musicians and he's worked with, like I'm just like, now you're just a shitbird. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I see. I don't follow them close enough to even know that because I
it's just one guy though. That's the thing. It's like one guy. Yeah. And I mean, kind of that's the way Opeth has devolved anymore now because it's just Michael, and he's just like, if somebody's an asshole, I'll kick him off the tour. Because like they constantly cycle through people all the time. I think they just kick somebody out in the 2020s for like being an anti-vaxxer or whatever. He's like, I'm not going to put up with that. You're gone. You're gone. Yeah.
I'm Opeth. Everybody fuck off.
Opeth can do that. The moment you mentioned Opeth, I'm like, man, I'm going to go listen to Opeth after the show.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I've been listening to them for 20 plus years now. So
like, yeah, they're so good. I am glad I've gotten to see them live. The only thing I've been like, I think I'm in a regressive state right now where I'm just listening to The Used and like Finch and like all these really old emo bands that I liked when I was a teenager. I'm like, I'm there. All right, now this show is no longer Halloween is Forever. It is a music podcast.
It's metal bops forever.
We don't have Brian here to rein us in. Our ADHD can take us.
That's right. Well, Brian's not here to rein us in. He's not here to talk about The Offspring.
Fair.
Garbage punk
Metalheads
takes.
took over.
That's
the episode.
Right. We can talk about metal all we want.
Team shit show right here.
Here's the other thing about metal. It's in robots. So there we go.
Look at guys, we're tying this together.
Comes full circle.
Everything makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, if Megan makes a sequel, I'll watch it. Now that I've been relatively entertained by this and I can see how silly they can be, I just hope they do go sillier and just like go full R rating, go full silly. All the good things we saw in Malignant, you see flashes of in this film. And so I just hope we get more of that in a sequel. If not, then I'm not watching 3. So that's how.
But I feel like Megan has to go to 3. I know the 3, like, the lines are really just like a battery.
Yeah.
However, I think it only makes sense that it makes it to 3.
I mean, they have to make it to 3, so they have to put 3. They have to put 2 3s in the thing. You got to get there. But yeah, that's a M3GAN or M3GAN or model 3rd generation. What the fuck ever.
Oh, this is just like an acronym to something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they mentioned in the movie, it's Model 3 Generative Android.
Oh.
So, yeah, which you never get introduced to Model 2 or Model 1. So,
well, I think we saw Model 2.
Bruce?
The melting face one.
Oh, okay.
I'd go with that. But any hoops.
Check it out.
Well,
if you got just like a boring day, don't bother watching Children of the Corn. That movie's still terrible. Or, do a double feature and see, how good kids can act and how bad kids can act.
It might make Megan look a lot better than, it just will.
Oh, yeah, no, it was definitely a palate cleanser to come on to this film and go, oh, thank God, none of these kids are fucking terrible.
I wanted to make a joke saying to stop coming on films, but anyhow, I'm going to move on. We'll
just move on and remind everybody that you can follow us at Halloween is Forever on all your major socials, and you can just leave a 5-star review on any of those podcatchers on a Spotify or a Podbean or an Apple. And if you do that, take a screenshot, send a DM to those previously mentioned socials, and Brian will send you stickers. And then also don't forget to vote on our May Showdown when we've got telekinesis on the table, we've got full moon features on the table, and we've got future stars on the table. Those before they were famous. That's all on the table for May, so don't forget to vote for that. And do we have anything else there, Meg?
Oh, no. Man, it's crazy how tight of a show this was, Steve. Such a tight show. We did great. We did a good job.
Tight. All that non-talk about, who's champ and, rambling on and on about how he's going to win.
Anymore? Yeah. Who is he?
Well, Brian is who will be back to defend his title when we finally do our full robot rampage. And, but until then, we're going to shit talk him, and then he'll listen to this and go, ooh, those motherfuckers.
Oh, he's going to come with ammo next week.
Over under on how many times he says insubordinate.
Ooh, wow. So at a minimum, it's going to be 5. At a minimum.
Yeah, I would say, at least 5 insubordinates and like 2 ungratefuls. So,
yeah, we might be called degens too.
Oh, probably. Yeah, probably. But in the meantime, until then, I'm Steve.
I'm Meg.
You've been listening to Halloween Forever. Bye.